Hello, it's Dr. Brian McDonough, and welcome to the Dr. Brian McDonough Show. Right off the top, I'd ask you to subscribe and like this video, especially if you're enjoying it. Back in 2022, I first had the opportunity to interview Angelo Cataldi in the Philadelphia area. In fact, overall in broadcast media, he's a legend. He was a morning sports anchor for 33 years in Philadelphia. That's quite an accomplishment to last that long and be that successful. Well, back when I interviewed him, he told me he was planning a retirement and he would be kind of phasing out, going off the air. And he also told me he was going to write a book. Back on February 17th, 2023, he did retire to an incredible amount of fanfare. It was a fun goodbye, something that I think he truly enjoyed. It was an opportunity to go out on top.
It's the end of my show, and I know it. It's the end of my life as I know it. I'm gonna count all my money, don't you know it? And I feel fine. I mock every athlete who said this when they retired, and I'm gonna close by saying it myself. It's time for me to go, Philadelphia. I need to spend more time with my family.
You can purchase a copy of Loud just about anywhere, but if you want to go to angelocataldi.com, you have an opportunity to get an autographed copy as well. Now, as you would expect, in that book, there are lots of fun stories, and they're great. They're delightful. But Angelo Cataldi also showed a different side of himself. He talked about the pressure he was under, first of all, as a graduate of Columbia School of Journalism and going into radio, and following a broadcast legend named Tom Brookshire. Now, if you don't know Tom Brookshire, Brookshire was a great NFL player who, after his career, became a broadcaster for CBS television. And back when TV was really big, he was one of the co-anchors or sportscasters for the NFL on CBS. When he finished that part of his career, he went into radio for a short period of time. And when he went into radio, he did a morning talk show with Angelo Cataldi. Here's an interview, courtesy of the Broadcast Pioneers, with Tom Brookshire talking about that show.
But for all the enjoyment of the NFL games, I did some college bowl games, Penn State when they played down there, Joe Paterno's team, and Bear Bryant and Darrell Royal, and I loved doing those college games. But the most fun I ever had in this business was at WIP when I had my own money involved and invested and trying to broadcast. And I ended up doing the morning sports thing up at 3 and at 6. You're going in with the people with the walkers for the afternoon movie, and it's rough. It's a rough thing to do. But morning sports are, and what you sow is what you reap. I really mean that. If you want to be stupid, low down, that's exactly what you're going to get. You're going to get junk. If you take on real issues and ask for intelligent discussions, it is out there.
You nailed it. I think that was the issue. That when I first went into radio, for 2 years, I leaned entirely on my far more talented and committed veteran broadcaster, Tom Brookshire. The responsibility wasn't mine for those 2 years. It was his. And then he left, and it was mine. And for a couple of years, there was no great expectation. But when we started to have success, toward the end of our 3 years with Tony Bruno, who was there with Al Morganti and me, I started to feel the pressure of it because Tony was on his way out. He was leaving. And I was, neither Al nor I had any radio background other than what we had done as a part-time host for a couple of years. And then when we went to WRP full-time, I didn't think I could do it, Doc, not long-term. Felt like I had, I guess what you call imposter syndrome, where I went, all right, they're going to find out now what happens. And the pressure kept building up to the point where at the very worst of it, I was off the air. I was zombie-like. I was amazingly tuned out of most of what was going on. And it wasn't to the point where I couldn't get up in the morning, but it was at the point where I dreaded getting up in the morning. And there was some milestone moments in there. One time I just posted an appearance and I just couldn't do it. I was in a limo and I just said, "Take me home. I can't do this." So there does come a point where you hit that wall. So I went off the air for 3 weeks, and I got some therapy, and which I've been back and forth with ever since. And I got some antidepressants, Effexor, which I've been on all this time since then. And it's not something you just crawl out of in a day or even a week. It takes a long time and leaves a scar because once you experience that feeling of just being lost, there's always a threat it'll come back. And that is a scar you don't ever get rid of because it's a really bad experience. Yeah, Doc, I mean, I had a little bit of a recurrence a few years before I retired. And I had another period after I wrote the book where I was lost again. I felt it coming back. So what I did was I had already kind of sensed that it would be a hard transition for me. So I had a psychologist who was a regular on our show, Dr. Joe Fish, and I contacted him like 2 months after I retired, and I went, "Doctor, he's a sports psychologist. He deals with athletes who retire in their 30s, and they have a whole 30 or 40 or maybe 50 years to live, and their identity's gone because they were an athlete, and now they're not an athlete. They can't run as fast or throw as hard." And I went, "I'm 72, and I'm experiencing it now. Maybe you can help me to understand what happens when your identity is pulled away from you, where I was the radio person for 33 years and now I'm not." And it was incredible experience to go through this with him. I'm still going through it now. He still works with me once a week. And you have to find something else. You have to find something else that excites you. And clearly now I got this book that I'm trying to sell, but after that, that's still part I got to figure out because you have to keep doing things that you feel are productive, that make your life worth living. Who are you? What makes you happy when the thing that fulfilled you is not there anymore? Now, family is huge, and I'm so thrilled that I get to spend more time with my grandchildren, my wife, my children who are no longer children. That's great. That's part of the adjustment. You've got to focus on that more because that's where the substance is. And that's what I'm trying to do right now. A lot of that is just refocusing where it should have been the whole time. Because, Doc, what I learned through this is that I gave too much of my life to my career and not enough of it to the things that matter more. And it's a heck of a process. It's you learn a lot. You learn a lot. And what I hope to be able to do on tour and what I did do in the book is share some of that and share how it, how my son is a better dad than I was to him. And I get into that.
Hmm.
I don't think I hid too much here. I said most of what I felt. Right now, I think this is my last hurrah. I think this is the last time people will hear from me because I kind of like this as my last word. It's time to move to the younger people. They've taken over my show. They're doing very well. What you learn in this business when you retire is everyone's highly replaceable, except maybe you, Doc. You may be the exception. The people that are taking over for us are going to be more equipped to do the jobs than we did. That's my new theory on that. I went in with this advice from my advisor at Columbia to make no friends, to expect them not to like you. And for the most part, they didn't, right? But then I got around my all-time boyhood hero, Wilt Chamberlain. Wilt Chamberlain, the late great Wilt Chamberlain, still the greatest basketball player of all time, no question. You could tell me about LeBron and Michael Jordan. Go ahead, tell me about that. I watched Wilt Chamberlain. Nobody dominated the game the way he did. But I got to meet him in 1992, and I was still working with Brookie. And I was not the journalist that day. So I separated for for the people that were my boyhood heroes, Muhammad Ali, I have a story in the book about when I met him, and I got a one-on-one conversation with Muhammad Ali. I was awestruck. There are exceptions, right? But most of them were incredibly disappointing when you got to know them. And what I began to fight further into my career was I was trying to shatter the myths that fans who were listening to me did not want to have shattered. To this day, Doc, most of the people in Philadelphia think Andy Reid is a genius, right? I couldn't stand him when he was here, can't stand him now anymore. He never answered a question honestly, which is one of the ways I gauged whether or not he was being upfront with the fans. But the more I said it, the more people liked him. So you got to be careful when you try to pop that balloon, you know? I mean, I covered Bobby Clarke when I first came to Philadelphia, and I found him to be an obnoxious, spoiled, not fun guy to be around at all. But people loved him. So you want to play that game. If they got to decide between you or Bobby Clarke, guess who's going to lose that fight? So you got to pick your battles. And but I didn't make friends with hardly any of them because that wasn't my job. And I couldn't stay Donovan McNabb. He was way too sensitive for Philadelphia. He was another guy who very rarely shared his real feelings with fans. There were so many. Curt, Schilling. I've got a whole chapter of the people that I feuded with when I was there and have maintained the feud past retirement. Still can't stand them. And the truth is, you know, a lot of people, Doc, when they get to retirement, they go, you know what, now I realize that I was a little harsh or all that stuff. I don't think that's going to be me. No, I just didn't. I never bonded with these guys. I was never part of their club. And I saw them in a different light than a lot of people did. And it wasn't always a very appealing one. Keith Jones is, wow, he's a special guy. I'm thrilled he got that opportunity because working with him, this is what that somehow the Flyers were able to perceive by hearing him on our show. And that was that people who are around him are better because he's there. He made all us better. He did 2 shows every 5 days on our show. Those were almost without exception the best 2 shows we did that week because not only was he great, but I know I loved working with him. The minute he would walk in the morning, and he came in early, came in like 5 in the morning, you would go, oh God, Jonesy's here today. It's going to be fun. And he's got authority. He's smart. He likes to come across like he is. And he says he's only read 1 book in his whole life. And he made it clear to me that my book will not be the second one he reads. but he's a special guy because everybody feels better when he's present. And I think the Flyers were desperate to get some of that goodwill to help reconnect with their fan base. And he's going to be able to do that. And the people around him, Danny Briere, seems like he's doing a pretty good job as a GM. John Tortorella, the coach, they're going to perform better because Keith Jones is there. So I have hope. It isn't going to be immediate, and I hope they have enough patience to wait a few years. But Keith Jones is a winner. Keith Jones will find a way to win with the Flyers again. I'm positive of it. Rhea, I speak with most days. In fact, we do a TV podcast together. The only podcast I do, and it's all about TV. It's called a TV show. Neither of us are the host. The host is Jay Black, who was my TV expert. He is a TV writer. He does Lifetime movies, Hallmark, stuff like that. And we have our own podcast we've been doing for over a year. So I talk to her all the time, and I love talking to her. Al, I have spoken to once in 9.5 months. And it was by accident. Jonesy invited me to go to a kind of like a day camp for the Flyers and talk to their executives. And Al was there. And we worked together in that in August. And it was like we were doing the show for about an hour. feeding each other and that kind of stuff. It was fun. But Al and I were very good on the air together, but not really that friendly off it. And that's kind of the way it stayed. In my era, I would like to be remembered as a worthy representative of the fans of this city. That's what I really want. What I want is I dedicated the book to the fans because honestly, the fans. I got to tell this story because in the book I have all these stories of these insane things. Fans, guy with a chainsaw in our tent, crazy stuff. I mean, as bad as throwing snowballs at Santa Claus. This is some crazy stuff. But then I said, you've got to understand. There's this passion that Philadelphia sports fan. It's not just negative; it's positive. And we got a call a couple of years before I was done from a caller, regular caller named Kenny Justice, who called to complain about the Eagles. He was a season ticket holder for all 4 teams, and I had heard back channel that he was having some serious health problems, even though he was like 50, 51, still young. And at the end of the call, I just said to him, "Where you going, Kenny?" And he goes, "Well, I'm heading to the hospital. I'm starting dialysis. My knees are failing." And I said, "Wow, that blows my mind. You got little kids. And I said, "How bad is it?" And he went, "No, I'm not in any immediate danger, but there's a chance I won't see those kids grow up to be adults." And at the end of this call, I said, "Well, is there any way somebody could help?" And he had a number you could call to inquire about donating an organ, donating kidneys. He was on around 8:30 that morning. At 10 o'clock when we were on, I got a call. 28 of the people listening called that number and began the process of donating a body part to help a voice on the air, many of whom knew him as nothing more than that, Doc. And they were willing to make that effort. And as a result of that, somebody donated a kidney that permitted Kenny to get a kidney. And Kenny is now healthy and doing great. And that's the other side of the Philadelphia sports fans. They have a big mouth, but they also have a big heart. And that's what I want to be remembered for, as a representation of those people. So I felt toward the end, at least, I was their voice, and it was an honor to represent them.
Many thanks to Angelo Cataldi for spending time on the show and for sharing so many personal details and hopefully helpful information, especially about depression, ways that other people who might feel alone can get a sense that there is help out there. Thanks for listening to the Dr. Brian McDonough Show. A special hello to Joe Glenn listening in Stanley, North Carolina. I appreciate your following the program. And for everyone out there, please take time to like and subscribe. Until next time, stay healthy.